Caro Presidente Damiani, caro Alessandro, cari amici e attori della ricerca e innovazione in Italia ed in Europa, volevo anch'io cominciare con la parola amici, amico, perché Fabio era infatti conosciuto a Bruxelles ed era conosciuto esattamente nei termini giusti trovati da Alessandro per descriverlo, e ci mancherà molto. Voglio ringraziare l'Agenzia di promozione per la ricerca in Europa per questa occasione di dialogare oggi in un momento credo molto opportuno per tutti noi. Ma siccome Alessandro ha già detto tutto, passerò all'inglese, così sembrerà diverso. I will try to use different terms, but you will recognize a number of themes which Alessandro, I think, very rightly put forward. I said that this is a very opportune moment to have a frank discussion, a constructive dialogue on what is required today in Europe. I think the term opportune is in fact wrong, and we should rather say that there is great urgency to talk in Europe today. And why? I see two reasons. The first one is that we are facing not only a multitude of crises recalled by Alessandro, but we are in front of existential challenges as Europe and of course also as humanity. We have a clock that is ticking faster and faster, reminding us that we are on the wrong track, that we are going towards producing our own extinction if we continue like this. We, I think, in Europe, in comparison with other parts of the world, do not have to blemish. We are arguably showing the way of a more sustainable path, of winning this challenge of sustainability, which is, I think, honestly, because it is so existential, the fight of this century. We got many things already right, of a regulatory nature, of a legal nature. We have now, and we are still the only continent in the world to have achieved that, we have enshrined in hard law that by 2050 we will be carbon neutral. Now that's one important step. But we also know today that we don't have all the solutions to get there. And to get there in a sustainable manner, and here by sustainable I mean in a socially sustainable manner for our societies. We estimate that today we probably have around half of the technological solutions that are required to achieve eventual carbon neutrality. Here in this room, I do not need to convince you that the other half will not just fall from the skies, but will require hard work and an obsession, a dedication with, indeed, efforts to push the boundaries of knowledge and of technology. The second reason why I would also speak of a certain urgency to have a conversation about research today in Europe is that indeed our comparative performance, our stance in the international competition have been declining. Not in absolute terms, but in relative terms, definitely. We are not moving fast enough. We have competitors who, in part, have surpassed us, and we have others who were always in front and with whom the gap has widened. So the ones who are at our height by now are definitely China, for instance. China is surpassing us now in this very simple indicator of research intensity. We are at just under 2.3% of our GDP. China by now is at 2.3%, and given their trajectory, undoubtedly will continue to grow. I'm not talking about their production in terms of publications or also in terms of patenting, where clearly they have surpassed us. And the ones whom we always had in sight as a reference point, the United States have indeed managed to make the gap wider. Now, I am not saying all this to give a sense of gloom and doom, not at all. We have enormous assets in Europe, and I think the fact that we are leading on the green transformation, as I would call it, because it's not, just a transition, is part, I think, of these assets that we have. But going back to just science, I mean, we do remain a scientific powerhouse today. But indeed, we are not making enough efforts, starting with this very simple metric of research and innovation expenditure. Yes, we promised ourselves more than 2 decades ago that we would be at 3%. There has been an upward creep, but really far too slow. I think we were probably at 1.9 back when we proclaimed we wanted to be at 3% 20 years ago. But I do believe that there is an awakening and a realization in Europe that we have not put our money where our mouth is. I have here as proof the fact that the European Council, so the meeting of heads of state and government, has rediscovered the 3% target and has proclaimed it again. That's a first step, I believe, and they did so back in March this year. And I also have great hope in the task, crucial, I believe, that was given to Mario Draghi only, when was it, 2 months ago, I think, to produce, for the benefit of the European Commission, but I would anticipate ultimately for the benefit of Europe and its policies, a report on the competitiveness of Europe. Because the weaknesses I have put some numbers on ultimately translate very clearly in a problem of competitiveness of Europe and in a very flat productivity line in Europe, despite the advancement of technology. And again, in comparative terms, we are there faring relatively badly compared to others. I mentioned the upcoming report of Mario Draghi because he has not yet started on this report. He will produce it by mid-next year. But because I think that it is also a unique opportunity for all of us to convince him, and through him many others, that research and innovation has to be right at the center of putting things right on competitiveness in Europe. But I wouldn't want you to have the impression that I am obsessed just with, expenditure levels on research and innovation. I think it is essential. Alessandro reminded of the very clear link there is between the national levels of expenditure on research and innovation and ultimately the level of success under the European framework program. And I think that it's not different in the global competition, that if we do want to keep pace and move ahead, we do need to raise the input into research and innovation. But indeed, it is not everything, and I want to first talk a bit about the policy framework before coming back on the framework program and its possible future. In terms of policy framework, I want to touch on two quite crucial and very promising instruments. The first one, the Recovery and Resilience Facility. In Italy, normally there's no need to explain what that is because you are the member state with the biggest national recovery and resilience plan in Europe. I refer to it because research and innovation has here, thankfully, not been forgotten as an area where indeed reforms and investments are required across the member states. And having analyzed all the national programs, overall, there is some 50 billion euros which should be supporting reforms and investments in our field. And this, I think, is one element of feeling somewhat more upbeat about Europe's future. And Italy has also foreseen quite a chunk of its own national RRP to go into reforms and innovation and investments in our field. You probably know this better than me, but I am under the impression now of 2 days of exchanges with national authorities here, which were very inspiring and very impressive as well. What I picked up, and this is not a complete list, is that in terms of investments, there would be quite a focus on developing technology infrastructures in Italy. On the reform dimension, the aim is to speed up evaluations, to have a higher concentration of means rather than spreading them out too thinly, to target improvements in the linkages between research and the private sector through different measures. One I remember is to have PhDs moving between universities and private businesses. There is a reflection ongoing on technology transfer offices and whether these shouldn't evolve from where they are presently anchored today and how they function today. And there is also quite a lot of attention devoted to research careers, and I'll come back to that. This, I think, is all also very pertinent and very promising for Italy. As you know, under the present framework program, we have one new feature called the European Innovation Council. And this is meant indeed to improve the dynamics between research and then eventually the market and some breakthrough developments in products and in services. Well, here, indeed, the performance of Italy is not as good as one could expect, given that your entrepreneurship is as good as any. You have a level of creativity, of inventiveness, which again is hard to beat in Europe. So one would think that you would be natural success under the EIC. But this is not yet so, and I have some confidence that what is in the making now in terms of reforms will be contributing to improving that track record. I was talking about research careers. This is another aspect, I think, of European competitiveness and where we need to do better. The human capital. That's the capital we have in Europe, the human capital. Of course, we also have some savings. That's good to invest. But certainly, in terms of natural resources, the human capital is what we have to build on. And here we see today that there are some places in Europe which are attractive for research, not all to the same extent, and there are certainly places outside of Europe which are attractive, and which attract Europeans, and which attract other talents which otherwise could possibly turn to Europe. This as a way of introducing the second policy framework I wanted to refer to, which is our European Research Area Policy Agenda. This is an agenda we agreed upon with the member states covering, for now, the years 2022 to 2024, with overall 20 actions to which member states can subscribe selectively. Italy has subscribed broadly to that agenda by signing up to 14 of those actions. And there is one action which, in fact, brought in all member states, recognizing, I believe, the importance of the topic, and it is the topic of research careers, their attractiveness and their sustainability. What we aim to do there is exactly to improve on what I described before. It is to grow talent internally in Europe and everywhere in Europe. It is about retaining that talent in Europe, and it is about beating the competition out there in attracting also talent from outside, which we can make good use of. Here, I want to share with you a very concrete and positive development, which is that the Council of the European Union is about to adopt a recommendation to member states providing a framework for research careers. It will be including a new charter for researchers, and we have in that context also set up a new European competence framework for researchers, which puts focus on transversal skills and on intersectional mobility. This is, I think, quite a reset for Europe overall, comprehensively, and we have indeed high hopes that this will contribute over time to making the career of researchers as attractive as it should be in Europe, and of us indeed building further human capital that we so much need. The ERA policy agenda for 22-24 is not meant to be a one-off, so we will be working on the follow-on policy agenda, which would cover the remaining years of the present financial framework, the years 25 to 27. But I don't want to dwell on that because I do believe that today the motto should be about implementing these 22 to 24 ambitions. Now coming to wrap it all up to our main tool, the Research Framework Program. I'm only in this job since February, so I am discovering still FP9, just to compare myself to Alessandro, who has seen it all and seen the whole evolution. But I was very happy to arrive at a moment when a lot of evaluation work indeed was going on Horizon 2020, which should lead to us presenting a final evaluation of Horizon 2020 by the end of this year or January at the latest. And indeed, we are also now embarking on the midterm evaluation of Horizon Europe itself. Horizon Europe itself, which I think as a starting point should not be looked down on. Horizon Europe does provide significantly more means than Horizon 2020, and in fact has also benefited, in inverted commas, from two factors to raise success levels as compared to Horizon 2020. The first factor was that the UK left, and the UK will now, thankfully, rejoin as an associate country, but will contribute from outside for the remaining years, 2024 to 2027. And through that, in fact, Horizon Europe will get 10 billion more. So we are, through EU means, starting from a program which was meant for 28, but then which ended up being for 27, with its 95 billion. We'll get 10 billion more, and we also received 10 billion more through the Next Generation EU recovery efforts. So it's not that bad from that point of view, and certainly quite a step change from Horizon 2020. Now, these are still relatively early days for Horizon Europe and for assessing it. We have until now received some 60,000 proposals, and indeed the success levels have been moving up quite a bit, reaching now slightly over 20% success. But still, one can also look at the missed opportunities. Beyond those 20%, we consider that there are another 1.5 times that excellent proposals, which we wouldn't have minded to fund as well. So this shows that certainly there is no absorption problem when it comes to the framework program. What is also positively striking is that there are a lot of newcomers. Around 1/3 of successful applications are made by newcomers who were not yet supported by Horizon Europe. And then to turn to the future, I want to refer to the novelties. I already mentioned the European Innovation Council, but next to that, as you know, we introduced 5 missions, and we also went for a certain rationalization of partnerships. And these, I believe, are topics which we should come back to also when reflecting on the 10th framework program. Let me just say one word on process. I can confirm that in order to proceed with the midterm evaluation and to develop ideas on the next framework program, we will put in place a high-level group of experts. There will be one Italian member to that high-level group, which will be composed of 15 experts, so much less than member states. And it will start its work around beginning of December, so in a matter of weeks now. We expect it to hand over its report by the end of this Commission's term, so around October next year. Regarding the topics, and I would want to bring it back to my initial remarks on the context, the challenges, the existential race in which we are in. Alessandro said it. I think that top of our obsessions should be the societal impact of the framework program. In order to make it stronger, and it's not only about money, it's probably also about money, but not only, to achieve a more systematic impact, which today is very, very rare, and also faster impact, thinking again about the urgencies. And as part of this ambition, I believe we also should look at what happened recently in terms of a form of industrial policy developing in Europe under pressure of different parts, and what happened in that context also to Horizon Europe. I know there is a theme which is one of those 12 recommendations for the future, which APRE is formulating. We need more flexibility, and we need to have a buffer for new priorities. Yes, but perhaps we should start by thinking again about the architecture of the framework program, asking ourselves the question, is the present architecture fit for the kind of new priorities that we have seen emerging, and where perhaps we weren't best equipped to reply to them? If I only mention the CHIPS Act and the prioritization suddenly of semiconductors, quantum, etc., in Europe. So I just put it as a question, but I believe that we do need to ask ourselves whether the present architecture, and especially under the second pillar, is exactly what upfront is most fit for purpose, before thinking about flexibility mechanisms and so on. A second topic is that Europe has to pull all its strengths, and today clearly the framework program is still one demonstrating quite a divide, quite a research and innovation divide in Europe, with many parts of Europe being very discrete or absent from the framework program, and this is not good. This weakens Europe, and we need to continue to work on that. Here again, I want to refer to the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which opened a certain new window, which we didn't have until now, with this notion of combining investments and reforms, and which could come in handy, indeed, to continue on the path of widening efforts in Europe. So here again, I just put it as a topic because we cannot, I believe, be fully satisfied with the pace at which member states coming from behind are progressing towards the average. And then finally, yes, on funding. I mean, I will not be talking about figures here, but let me just share one conviction. And it is that the framework program, because of its cooperation dimension, and because it is and should fundamentally remain open to the rest of the world, also through our association agenda. I mean, I mentioned the UK now, but we should be concluding soon, very, very soon, I hope, association of Canada, for instance. We have already in our bag the association of New Zealand. And this list will, I expect, continue to grow over the coming years, with countries not situated in our immediate vicinity. Of course, I also count on Switzerland rejoining through association Horizon Europe, and I guess that this would also be particularly good news in Italy. But what I mean to say by this is that we have an instrument in Europe which also serves our capacity to cooperate with the rest of the world, which is envied by the rest of the world. In fact, no other entity has this tool, has this catalyst for cooperation. And I mention this just as one feature of what I am deeply convinced in, and it is that in hopefully really living up to our ambitions and promises in terms of expenditure for research and innovation in the coming years, that in increasing our efforts, we will also think European, and that we will also consider that the European Framework Programme is an excellent place to channel these additional efforts through. I was very long, I'm sorry for that, got carried away. I just want to conclude saying again that to me this is very much a dialogue which has some time to proceed. We will want to hear from everyone, to listen to everyone, to listen to APRE, which has already its ready recommendations for us, and I want to thank you for that. The Commission proposal for the next framework program are only expected in mid-2025, and certainly the period for this intensive exchange and dialogue is to run for at least another 12 months. So let's all make use of that, and let's make Europe and of course Italy stronger, more sustainable, and a better place to live for its citizens through it. Thank you very much.